you. It's hard to be between the break and coffee and enjoying conversation. So I'll let everybody settle down for a minute or so before we run into this. So I'm a partner at RockPort Capital. We are a multi-stage venture capital firm that invests in energy, sustainability, and mobility very broadly. Formed in 1998, our first fund was raised in 2000. Bi-coastal firm, Boston and San Francisco. We're 10 partners and have a team approach to investing in 3 funds under management, a total of $850 million of capital under management. And our most current fund is a $454 million fund that we're currently investing out of. 3 big focus areas, as I mentioned, energy, sustainability, and mobility. Very broadly speaking, we look at the energy world very broadly. So we are not opposed to investing in oil and gas, unlike some of the other venture firms that have stayed clear of it. You've been hearing a lot about the clean tech sector. We tried to fight that name very carefully and very closely, but just got branded as it by the world. And we've always been very broad in the world of energy and sustainability and mobility. About 5 years ago, we started this thesis around the physical world that we operate in getting digitized by technologies, all these buzzwords you heard about, data science, Internet of Things, hyperconnectivity. And we looked at it from sort of a market perspective and said, how can we find these entrepreneurs and these technologies that are out there that are going to transform these industries and bring them into the digital age? And we made quite a few investments in transportation and mobile power and urban mobility. And I'll talk about a couple of them. So I thought the best way to kind of give you a preview of what we do is some of our existing portfolio. And this is not meant as an advertisement, but just more as kind of a vantage point into the handful of companies that we've invested in. We've got an active portfolio of about 40 companies. Enlighted is a smart building energy efficiency company. At the core of it, they're really an Android platform for the Internet of Things. What these guys came up with was a very clever, capital-efficient way to come up with a sensor package that can be integrated with any kind of light. It doesn't matter what kind of light it is, whether it's LED, T5s, or traditional illumination lighting, and found a very cheap and effective way to connect and create a network, a very large network of endpoints across the building, and have demonstrated that they can actually save about 60% of lighting. They're deployed in 40 million square feet today, and they're going to, by the end of this year, there'll be 100 million square feet of technology deployed. So you can think about a large, very vast network of this technology out there. Once you have the sensor network installed, you can do a lot of other things with it. Lighting is the first way to do it. One of the other key innovations was they came up with a savings PPA model. They call it geo-financing. When you're selling to these buildings, you're typically selling to the building manager or the person who's responsible for maintaining these buildings, the facilities manager. The guy doesn't have a checkbook or a budget at all to invest in anything related to capital, right? So you've got to find a way to be innovative and get them excited about raising their neck and saying, yes, I want to deploy this. And the geo-financing does exactly that. So give you an example, right? If your lighting bill is about $1 million, these guys will save you $600K of that lighting bill on average. And this has been validated and demonstrated across hundreds of buildings. We structure a 5 or 7 or 8 year contract to cover the cost of the deployment, where they write us a $400,000 check and they pocket $200,000 savings. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, the IRR on that is incredible. You look like a hero. And that's what's led to this deployment of this technology. Once you have the sensor network installed, you can start looking at, you've essentially got an infrared sensor, a visual sensor, a temperature sensor, a CO2 sensor. You can start thinking about how the space is utilized. And you can start selling apps around facilities utilization, around conference room management, around HVAC control, and that's what they've started to evolve into. So now they have this network that doesn't need to talk to any of these legacy systems inside the building and can start delivering other value to the buildings, including in retail. I mean, at the end of the day, they have a heat sensor. They can see what's happening, and they've been able to identify theft in retail environments, which is also very powerful. Nphase Energy, this is a public company. We've been investors in this company for a very long time. They're the leading solar microinverter company. I think last year they did almost $250 million in revenue. Very exciting company. And one of the key value propositions here was, instead of having a central point of failure, create a distributed network of these inverters. And the key benefits are you have significant increase in energy production, which has been validated. It reduces energy mismatch between panels, and the customers are able to have a visualization of their power production. More importantly, also, now these are all grid-tied inverters. So as more and more penetration of solar happens, utilities want more control over the network, and Nphase allows that too. This is a company called Flywheel. Everybody's aware of Uber, but Flywheel is really Uber for the taxi fleet. they started this company about a couple of years ago. It was a very contrarian bet on our part, and we felt that Uber was really anti-cabs, and there was an opportunity to create a solution that could actually help the existing infrastructure. There's a very large installed fleet of cabs. They're not going to go anywhere. Uber is going to be dominating that space, but this is a $25 billion industry today. It's not going to evaporate tomorrow. And so we gave them an opportunity to be able to fight back with Uber. And this company is growing 30% month over month. It's in San Francisco, LA, and Seattle, soon to go live in 15 other cities. And they play inside the regulation. So again, a digital transportation solution that is bringing efficiency to an existing asset base. Exciting materials technology innovation. This is again on silicon play. These guys have demonstrated a whole new architecture for GaN on silicon. I'm not a power electronics expert, so I'll stay out of the physics of how this works. But suffice to say, these guys have used a fabless model. They partnered with TSMC and have demonstrated that they can actually scale their solution and have demonstrated product actually at very high current and very high voltage, which is very hard to do with GaN on silicon. Somebody talked, I think Sanjay mentioned battery innovation is very, very slow, which is very, very true. So this is an investment we made about 3 years ago in a company that has come up with a completely different architecture for lithium-ion batteries. It's a 3D architecture that leverages existing chemistry, and they have demonstrated a doubling of volumetric energy density in the same package of existing batteries, which is very, very powerful. And it's based on silicon batteries. It's all 100% silicon. They're the first ones to actually bring a pure 100% silicon battery to the market. And the key innovation was around architecture, completely changing the way you think about it. They brought a bunch of solar and MEMS guys into a room and put them together with electrical engineers and battery chemists and said, how do we completely change the way you think about designing a battery? It's always been done in the 2D architecture. What if we flipped it on its head and said, we released all the constraints and leverage all this know-how and scale up that's already happened in the solar manufacturing space? Can we change the way the battery industry works? And that's what manifested into Innovix. We've attracted some very high-profile investors that I cannot name that are the leading companies in mobile and processing power and semiconductor industry that are financing the build-out of the factory right now. So very excited to see these guys come to market. And this is a real product today. It's just in the process of scaling to manufacturing. And hopefully, it'll have a huge impact on the industry when it comes out there and changes the curve. So when new chemistries come out, these guys can take advantage of any new chemistry. It's agnostic to chemistry. Somebody comes up with the next best chemistry, we're just going to insert into our platform, and we'll get an added advantage on a very different performance curve. This is a company called Renovate America. How many of you are familiar with PACE financing? So 3 years ago, everybody said PACE was dead. And then we ran into Renovate America. These guys were very quietly operating under the radar and went ahead and addressed some of the biggest challenges that PACE had faced with regard to Fannie and Freddie and some of the other issues that they had in terms of subordinating this product and making sure that it could actually work in the PACE infrastructure. They started operating in Western Riverside County when we met them, and the reddest counties and the most conservative counties in California. And they figured if they can make it work there, they can make it work anywhere in the country. So they built out a product. I mean, this number is probably outdated. I think last year, they more than doubled this number of financing. So it's really scaling very nicely. They are now able to operate in 71% of housing stock in California. So they're the largest player in PACE, period, and largest player in California, and are soon about to launch in several other states. There's 29 other states that have passed PACE regulation. And this is a very innovative way to bring energy technology and energy financing to help people upgrade their housing stock and bring energy efficiency to the forefront. So very excited about that. So this just gives you a little bit of a preview of the type of companies we invested. So I'm going to stop and open up to questions, and let's make this an interactive conversation instead of me talking about things that we've done in the past. Any questions? Nobody?
The companies you've invested in that have failed or have not done as well, what sort of category, what are the causes of failure, and how would you categorize this?
I'd say the number one category of failure is very slow adoption. Sometimes you have, I'll give you an example. We invested in a grid-scale energy company, very exciting technology. We were all excited about the storage market, the $0 trillion market that everybody keeps calling, right? And we invested in a technology innovation that is actually mechanical technology based, not electrochemical at all. And they got the technology right. 4 years later, they nailed it. They built the first pilot plant, 2-megawatt plant. It's operating better than advertised in terms of round trip efficiency, but the market's not there. nobody cares about it. Everybody talks a good game about grid storage, but it's not there yet, and I don't know how long it'll take. And I think so that's a bet where we got the technology right, we got the market wrong. So I think adoption just never arrived. Another case is where sometimes energy tends to be a commodity industry, and also is extremely capital intensive, and some of these projects failed because they couldn't attract capital in a recession environment. So that was another big reason for something out of our control. We couldn't control it. I mean, you can't fault the team for delivering on all the milestones you set up for them, but when the market conditions change, that's the dynamic of the energy industry. It's very, very hard to scale innovation.
All right.
Okay. One more question. There you are.
Just going off the conversation earlier this morning, to what extent are you working with corporates, coming from a venture perspective, to be that lead investor and then carrying it forward with some of the corporates who are now getting more and more engaged in this space? Absolutely.
So we've been very, very actively involved with corporates from the very beginning. We always had this view that energy is a very entrenched industry. The channel to market is very, very important to get right. So we've invested, pretty much all our companies have corporate co-investors, and the focus we always have is there's got to be a rationale for why to get a corporate investor in. There has to be a 1 + 1 greater than 2 opportunity where either there's access to channel or access to insights or the ability to deploy the technology internally that validates it and changes the game for these startups. Because this is a show me industry. You really got to demonstrate and have credibility for mass scale adoption.
All right, I think we're going to move on. Thank you very, very much.
No, happy.